Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are. I'm Ray Orsini, and joining me as always on MSP Community Live is Mr. Matt Topper. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great. How about you?
Doing awesome. I hadn't told you before, but your mic sounds phenomenal, by the way. You sound
Oh,
great.
thank you. I didn't
Yeah,
change
man.
anything. I wonder what's different.
Yeah. No, I meant to tell you a few episodes back, but it sounds really good. So, since we're always talking setups and stuff, figured we at least give you some positive feedback because the never ending move this here, light this there, that's just never going to stop, as you've seen. So,
Never ending rearranging and challenge and rabbit hole, and never ending financial money pit as well.
yes. Yeah, that's about right. The joys of streaming and being on camera. So,
Right.
what have you been up to this past week?
Really not too much. So a lot of meetings, a lot of prep for Connect is going on behind the scenes. So
Okay.
that's a big thing. I don't want to turn this into a pitch or promo, but I am super excited that the ConnectWise Microsoft stuff got announced so that I
Saw
can
that. Yeah.
stop having to hold back on talking about that.
That
Purely
was
selfish.
very,
I
very cool.
it
We
was
announced it on we just talked about it on MSP Dispatch just before this episode actually. But why don't you fill people in on what that is? Because that's kind of a really cool thing.
Yeah, so ConnectWise and Microsoft are partnering up to try and bring better security overall to the channel. And one of the first steps towards that is an integration with Defender for Business and Defender for Endpoint with the ConnectWise SOC. And the value there is that so many partners and not just ConnectWise partners, so many businesses are already buying business premium that comes with Defender for Business or have Defender for Endpoint. And previously there weren't a lot of good socks around that offering. So that's the main thing. It's a way to make use of some of the licensing you already have. And we see a lot of value in that. And we saw a lot of interest leading up to it. And in future, we see a lot of potential partner opportunities with Microsoft in similar vein as far as making better use of tools you're already paying for. So super cool. That's as far as I'll go. I won't turn this into a sales pitch or promo, but
No, no, it's
um,
good.
it's
Uh,
cool to be able to talk about it because a lot of planning and a lot of input about this is what I would have wanted a couple years ago as an MSP went into this, and I'm excited that it's now come to fruition.
Yeah, this was something we talked about on Dispatch. Tony and I were of the opinion this is great for MSPs. Get that kind of visibility, that collaborative information exchange between two enormous industries that affect our lives daily. I think that's going to be phenomenal for MSPs and their clients across the globe, whether they're ConnectWise customers or not. It doesn't really matter at this point. It's
Right.
just an awesome amount of information being shared. So, yay for everybody. So,
Yeah.
congrats on that. Yeah. So we have stuff. We have our stories on the Reddits. Uh, Kelvin posted this. What would you tell an MSP starting today? Um, you had mentioned one too. I was trying to find in the host chat and I couldn't find it. Um,
I will post a link to it while we're talking about
I appreciate that.
Kelvin's.
So let's get started with the Kelvin one while you're doing that. If you're starting an MSP today, what would you tell an MSP starting today? And he starts it, hey, everyone working on, and Kelvin also being a moderator of our MSP. We're working on improving the quality of posts in our MSP. That includes trying to tackle low effort posts we've all come to hate, but that repeat weekly. This time we're collecting your information about someone wanting to jump into our space, not really knowing where to start, what to do, and if they should. Most of the times these posts are met with, oh, this again. This post will be linked to those posts, and the goal will be a giant mega thread. So, what's your feedback? I want to start an MSP, Matt. Should I? What should I do? What do I need to know? What's your feedback there?
I think the cool thing about this is that we're soliciting the community's feedback, and depending on who is asking, the answer might be you should or shouldn't start an MSP, or you should do this or buy this or whatever. I'm majorly in support of trying to get conversations to be more productive and have something that's more readily available so that instead of having everyone post that this gets asked 6 times a week, actually have an answer for the things that gets asked 6 times a week, so that the things that are posted are the new and interesting discussions. Um, right. I wouldn't even have an answer for what to tell you without knowing who's asking or what they've done before or what their background is, right? If you're a tech, I might say maybe get some business experience or just have a plan or know what you're in for before going down this road, right? It's not all roses. And if you're primarily a business person, um, make sure that you understand the technical requirements and nuance of this. Um, so very context dependent, and I think what we'll get from this is a good repository of frequently supplied answers to ask, and different paths and different ways that you can go when starting out.
Hmm. So I think my first question would be why? Why do you want to do this?
Mhm.
Um, your motivations can definitely color your experiences, and definitely, if you have goals, you want to work toward them. Um, Everybody has goals, whether they're overtly stated or inferred or just never stated publicly. You have goals. Everybody has goals, whether it's to make enough money to support yourself, enjoy yourself, whether it's to provide a good service to others, to fill a niche that maybe is underserved. Everybody has goals, whatever it happens to be. I hate working for my boss. Maybe the goal. It doesn't matter. But, everybody has those goals.
Yeah, it's a
Uh,
valid.
yeah, but what I see everybody does not start with is a business plan. And that's probably where I would start. It's one of those tools that gives you the plan of how to get to your goal. You're also going to very quickly identify your areas of weaknesses, because you're going to struggle to fill those spots in on a business plan. And ideally, when you're done with the business plan, it doesn't have to be like this tome. It could be a 1 page or 2 pager. It's not a big deal. And there's tons of templates out there from the SBA and from tons of other places. Um, but once you have the business plan, then you can start to identify, what do I need? What roles do I not know how to fill? Do I backfill it with learning that, getting that knowledge, or do I fill it with hiring somebody? If I'm going to hire somebody, how am I going to get the money to do that? Which is my order of priority in terms of hiring? All of that comes from a business plan. Really, really simple. Um, and one of the possible outcomes of doing a business plan is be like, this is way too much shit. I don't want to do it.
Yeah,
And that's fine
exactly.
too. That's you know, um, and
No,
that's
that's
kind
a great point. It gets you into the mindset of, right, because most MSPs were started by engineers who said, "I want to go do this by my," not all, but the
yeah,
majority
a
of
good
them
number of
were
them. Yeah.
techs who said, "I want to go into business," and doing that formally gets you think, man, this is really what I'm in for. It's not just that one decision that my boss made that I felt I could have made better. It's there's a lot that goes into running a business, and getting an idea for what are you going to be in for if you do this. That's pretty valuable.
It is. And that's kind of my thing. It's like, go into it, and then at the very least, when you're going into it, you know what you're expecting. Or because you're still gonna have stuff that comes up that you weren't expecting. But this way you at least know what could come up. Um, so I'm all for it. Let's see what some of the advice is. Let's spoon this. I'm I'm coining the spooner as a verb. Let's
It's a
spoon
verb,
this.
spoon it.
Yeah. How do you think the sub responded?
I think that we're going to get a lot of good advice on this one. I anticipate some responses along the lines of understand the business side, make your tool choices and stick with them. I think this will be a thread that we, as a community, did a good job of being grounded on and didn't just get a bunch of joke or technical answers.
I um I I agree with you actually. I've seen the sub move more towards better business conversations as opposed to just tech. Not always, but I have seen the movement. So let's see what 11,000 total viewers read, and some responded. Happy Data for Jesus, constant poster on the sub. Please search the sub. You may think your situation is unique because of X, but we've answered your question to others before. 100% in agreement. Establish your business license by incorporating
Yeah.
an LLC. Okay. Get a corresponding banking account. Cool. Keep your business and personal finances separate. That's business 101 for any business. So excellent. A competent accountant should be your ally during this process. okay, I'm no lies detected here.
Yeah,
Uh,
this is good.
yeah. 3, spend the money on an attorney who truly understands your business to get a solid MSA. You'll either spend this money on an attorney now or you spend it on court costs later. Um, and I would even extend that, even if you never actually end up going to court, you are going to realize the value of a solid MSA because you'll have enough conversations that your MSA could have solved. And at some point, you're going to spend the
100%.
money. I mean, that's more like,
You're gonna spend the money, lose it on time dealing with a
oh yeah.
client dispute otherwise, even if you settle or do whatever you end up doing.
Yeah, and especially he's not Brad Gross is definitely not a sponsor. He's just somebody I trust very much. He has pre-made MSAs. He's not the only MSP attorney. There's plenty of others if you search, but there's several in our space nowadays that have ready to go MSAs that'll tailor it to your business. So it's not a super expensive thing as it used to be. Um, First tool you need is an RMM, then comes your PSA. At which point you start down the
Man,
path
I
of
kind of
integration.
disagree with that order.
That was the first one I disagreed with, so I'm glad to hear you say that. So
If you had nothing but a PSA, right, I mean, MSPs existed before RMMs. I guess they
yeah.
existed before PSAs too, but given the choice, I would much rather have a ticketing system and drive around town than the opposite.
How many companies have you seen on Reddit, especially solo, one person operator that say, I can't get my client to stop calling my cell phone or texting me? Well, that's the ticketing system you introduced when you started your business because
Yeah.
you chose to get an RMM first or you chose to do something else first. I agree with you 100%. CRM first, in my opinion, then PSA. There's free CRMs, there's free ticketing systems. PSA obviously is the evolution of both. So if you can afford it, get it. And there's PSAs nowadays at every finance possibility. Um, just get something to track it. But
Man,
I
just to
agree with
track
you.
your billing, right?
Yeah,
Imagine invoicing without tracking time in any way.
that was misery. I've been there, done that. Outlook, Excel sheet, a safe manner to remotely connect to things. Yeah, none of this
You're not
crap.
wrong. That's kind of all you need.
Seriously, I'd build. I agree 100%. Build the processes first, and then come on second. Do worry about the tools. And it's funny because the next line is, "Do not fall into the trap of buying a shiny tool and complicating your stack when a solution already
100%.
exists."
We should see if we can sticky that or highlight that
Yeah,
somewhere.
this is just that's money right there. This guy should be charging for that advice right there. Um, Review your vendor contracts or have them reviewed by your attorney. Watch for terms, expiration, termination windows. This is something I didn't do early. It took me about 2 years to start doing this, get in the habit of, but it would have made my life so much easier if I had from day one.
It,
Um,
it's an interesting point because while I do agree that you should review everything you're signing, the reality is you don't have very much leverage in these negotiations. And most of the time, especially with SaaS vendors, you can accept the terms or not. Unless they really want your sale, you're not going to have much opportunity to redline it.
yeah. Um, I will say, as somebody who almost never accepts red lines to his own contracts, there are very few things I've ever had to push back on with the vendor where I felt it was worth the conversation and I'd be willing to back out if it wasn't acceptable. Um, in every one of those situations, they were actually pretty amenable. They were not big changes. I was not asking to change venue. I was not asking. They were more along the lines of like uplift cadences or termination modes, right?
Yeah, or like change a deadline to
Yeah,
60 days from 30 or something like that.
yeah, those things are typically malleable. I think the far greater thing from that line though is document the expiration dates and their notice periods in
Yeah.
whatever platform, in Excel and Outlook, or whatever the hell you want to do. Because the last thing you want to do is want to look at this new shiny tool and then have to go figure out because you ignored the previous rule and then you went and you couldn't figure out when your contract expires or when to give notice,
For
or
sure.
yeah, or you got auto renewed for another 3-year contract and you weren't expecting it. Um, that's
Yeah.
100% foreseeable,
And,
right?
and don't let my cynicism indicate that you shouldn't read it, right? Even if it's not changeable, you might read something from a potential supplier and
Yeah,
decide that doesn't work for me and we're just going to go with someone else. Definitely
yeah.
understand what you're agreeing to.
But you heard Matt Topper of ConnectWise. You never need to buy a PSA or an RMM ever. No.
I wonder if
Kidding.
anyone watches this from
Yeah, that'd be
ConnectWise.
funny though. I know at least 2 ConnectWise people that do watch this. I don't think any could have any say in your employment at all, but, um, I think you're safe there. Alright. Oh, I love number 7, and I'd probably put this higher. Get connected to a peer group. We might be competition depending on service area, but we're also friends in a very niche industry. Treat others with respect. You will earn respect in return. I'd probably put that at number 1. Uh, I mean, talk to others, see what their challenges are when they were first starting. Use that
Yeah.
to guide my business plan a little bit. Um, oh, Dean is already messaging McGee. So, but
I guess I could stay on a lot longer then.
yeah, we're good then. We're good. We'll just do bits and books from MSP Community Live. Not a problem. Um,
um, so one point with that, most peer groups will really try to not put you with local geographic competitors. That likely won't be an issue.
yeah. So let's qualify this then there. There's peer groups like Barry McKinley, TBG, HTG. There's those that are paid to join peer groups. And then there's other peer groups like RMSP, Tech Tribe. That's what I'm referring to when I talk about joining. I would think a paid peer group from day one may be a little too, I think it might get overwhelming, honestly. Um, definitely show you the right things to monitor, that kind of stuff. But I know if I had joined, and I did Chartech, I did True Methods, I did quite a few of them over the years, but I know if I would have joined those from year one, even, um, I would have been, there's too much hair on fire stuff. I would not have been able to. Chartech was probably the one exception because they taught you, it was very much this is what we did, you can copy it. So it's very much a cheat
Mhm.
sheet. And now this is more than half a decade old experience. So, trust but verify. But but
Yeah, no,
that was one of
that's
the
a good
easier things. But I
point.
think like if you start talking about financials year one, week one, you know what I mean? Like that's gonna get really tough.
It's a little bit of a mixed thing. And without this being a pitch, I saw our business transform when we joined HGG. It was a night and day
Yeah.
difference as far as the formality to which we were tracking things and the maturity that came along with that. And on some perspectives, right, it was difficult because all of a sudden we have tons and tons of data we're supposed to collect and tons of metrics that we needed to bring to the meetings. But the work and the processes that we had to develop to be able to even collect some of this data really helped with the maturity and things that we were looking at. And it's one of those things where I wonder if it would have been easier to do some of that stuff when we were even smaller, more agile.
This is one of those I would love to hear from the MSPs, because Matt and I are both fairly removed from starting an MSP for a minute now. Um, so I would definitely love to hear from some MSPs, because yeah, I my side of it is, and Dean brings up a good point. If you're not able to contribute back because you don't have the financial data, you don't have stuff, you may not be a good fit for the. But
Mhm.
also the peer groups generally align people that are in the similar stage, right? Also, it's not just financial, not just geography. Um, so hopefully that should help with some of that. I just the financial reporting. I don't get me wrong. I'm 100% all in on peer groups. I just worried like some of the financial reporting, some of the feedback might be too much. Like when I did C level, I had time set apart for the changes we were requested to do every week, and even a
Right.
weekly cadence is hard. But I had staff and stuff ready to go for that. Um, I don't
Yeah,
know.
it's give and take, right? I
Yeah,
mean, in some ways, it's nice to have that understanding of what good looks like from those peer groups at an early
yep,
stage, but you're right, it's a lot of work.
yeah. I'm curious who's done it. I'd love to get real world experience from that, from some of the MSPs, because I'm sure there's people that done both, right? There are people that did it later, like I did, and there's people like that have done from day one, like you're recommending. So I'd love to hear some real world experiences on that.
I'm
Um,
not sure I'm recommending it necessarily. I'm saying it could be an option. So we also
okay,
were at least a few years into this when HTG came around, and so it's the same perspective, right? We
yeah,
weren't quite figuring out how to tread water. We had figured out that stuff, but we were still small enough that we could make significant changes without major disruption. I think there's benefit to
Yeah.
doing it in that stage before you get so far along that, some of these changes are like massive process overhauls.
I think you and I are at 100% on that. That I would agree with 100%. Like, don't wait forever for this thing. Don't wait till you feel you have a bunch of people. While I'm saying I wouldn't do this probably year one, I definitely do it within the first 2 or 3 years. By that point, you have enough financial data, you have enough ticketing data, you have your processes that are probably not perfect or probably nowhere near perfect. I think that's where you're probably going to get the best bang for the buck out of these, starting from that point. Um, yeah, SLI data is no joke. Um,
Yeah.
but it's like ITIL, right? ITIL is a real pain in the ass if you do it to the letter too. So, um, let's see. Getting clients in the beginning is as simple as asking for referrals, connecting with centers of influence, having a simple website, door knocking, shaking hands. I feel like Happy Data for Jesus just read all my previous posts and just started commenting on there.
I mean, he's obviously been down this road before, and I
Yes.
don't disagree with anything, right? Our one disagreement so far was an order of operations thing.
Yeah. 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 Yeah, and then as you are able, outsource the tasks you're not good at or no longer suitable use of your time. That's going to change over time, but that's why I harp so much on the business plan. You're going to see, yeah, we do need accounting that's, at least reconciled monthly or whatever. We need to do the invoicing. Do I have time to do the invoicing? Do I want to do the invoicing? That's going to temper who you hire and how quickly you hire. And because you have that list already, you know what the salary goal should be. So you know how much money you need to make to support those things. Like it's very
It's
much a recipe, right?
agreed. It's one of those things that just changes as the type of company you are changes, right? When you're in startup mode and you hear something like CEO or CFO, you're talking about somebody who does the bookkeeping and someone who happens to be the boss as to uh, depending on later on when you're a CFO, you're truly doing financial work where you're truly thinking vision and you stepped out
Yeah.
of the day to day. It changes as you get bigger.
Yeah, I mean, CFO is doing strategy and, examining like stuff like our ERC credits or retention credits or planning for tax savings for the following year, or planning out budgets for 5 years from now.
Yeah.
That visionary stuff. I mean, the CFO is basically the visionary for the finance realm for a company. Um,
And when you're 5 people, the CFO is generating the invoices.
Right, exactly. If your CEO is not, right? Um, so yeah, 100%. So, look through where you want to be. I think the one, and somebody did fight back saying that you may not need an RMM now or even ever. That's a whole other conversation. I don't think we're at the point of not needing any RMM yet. I would very much like to. Sorry, Matt's employer. I would very much like to get to the point where we don't need an RMM, but I don't think we're there yet, or anywhere close.
What I think is that I could see the definition of RMM changing over time, but the need for something to centrally manage configurations across clients, I don't think will ever
Oh,
go
that'll
away.
always be. Yeah,
The what is an RMM can be a fluid term and a fluid
yeah.
definition.
Yeah, I think our definition today of installing an agent somewhere to run a bunch of scripts, I think that definition of RMM will probably go away at some point in the next 10 to 15 years. I think a quality RMM will focus more on something like what SIP's doing, leveraging cloud and on-premise. Well, SIP only does cloud, but leveraging those resources and providing an orchestration platform, right? For those of us that have ever used SCCM, it was invaluable if you once you learned how to use it. It was a beast to learn. I could say the same thing about Azure or Entra. I could say the same thing about 365. They're a beast to learn, but once you learn to manage it, they're invaluable. You definitely want, and I think the RMM is going to become that orchestration layer to tie it all
I
together.
think the definition is in the name, right?
Yeah,
The literal remote monitoring and management. You need that functionality, whether it comes
100%.
from an agent or built into or whatever down the
Yeah,
road. That may change.
yeah, and that's what I think we'll see. And I would even argue for those that are saying RMM needs to go away, at that point, RMM is going to become even more invaluable. because shadow IT is a thing. Monitoring all these disparate platforms are far more difficult because you can't just go to WMIC and pick all the installed applications. That doesn't work with cloud. So
It
you
doesn't work now, right? It won't get stuff
Oh,
that's in your
no.
local profile.
Exactly. But you get what I'm saying? Like, as those things evolve and Microsoft is making it evolve, you definitely are gonna have to the goal is moving and RMMs are gonna have to catch up. Um, what's up? I think Acronis is Baganin, which is coming to the States very soon. So very excited. Hopefully get to hang out with him. So thanks for joining, dude. Appreciate you. Um, there was some good feedback here that I want to cover before we get to the next story. Some people were talking about the search, how subreddit search sucks. And they were saying just go to Google or
Yep.
yeah, and do that. I actually do exactly that when I'm searching. Um, and it works really well.
I end up doing that for a lot. Reddit seems to have a lot of good on tech stuff, at least.
Yeah.
Don't do it for personal advice or almost anything outside of tech.
Yeah, it's funny because Reddit, like SEO for me and for my company at Reddit is phenomenal, right? Like it shows up on every search, like the indexing is great. It's funny that Reddit's own search is so deplorable
It's
when
so bad.
you know what I mean, considering it's so gritty. Oh, he's already in Tampa. Awesome. Good to hear it, Baga. Um which we call it. Yeah, so that's funny. So I thought, in case anybody's not doing that, just cite colon whatever website you want to search, and then your search term in Google will search that website.
We should have like a whole episode on cool Google dorks.
Oh yeah, I would love that. We can even put some of the Google games in the in there too. um Will you need an RMM for MSP? I agree, sort of implies yes, but does your RMM need to be everything to fill every need to everybody? Nope. There's some I like that there's some good conversations here, and very, very few are tool driven. So, hey,
Yeah.
there's a familiar face. Where have I seen that name before? Oh, wait, here. Um, are you doing this because you want to get paid doing something you love? Or are you doing this to start a viable business? Much like other established low entry barrier industries, it's likely not enough to only be in it to do something you love. You need to be a business owner first and an amazing tech second. Have a plan. Configuring firewalls, fixing printers is less than half the battle. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
I agree
100%.
because we already said it. I agree. I agree 100%. We agree. All right. So while we bring up the next one, say hello to a few people in the audience. Hey, Josh, thanks for being on, dude. Hardest part of Reddit lockdown was not being able to use the Google search for Reddit posts. Does that not work anymore?
So the subreddits that participated in the blackout
Oh, yeah,
would
yeah,
still
I
show
got
up in Google searches, but you couldn't visit them.
you. What did I tell? Let's do the best one. Which RMM? Um, which RMM? Okay, so that still works. And if anybody knows how to put a dark mode for Reddit, please let me know. All right, so let's move over to this one. Out of scope work. This one you had nominated. Tell us why you nominated this one.
So the reason I thought this would make a good discussion is I had clients that did this, that we were mostly an all you can eat shop. And we had one or two clients that wanted to do everything hourly. Um, Now, in one case, I was totally fine with this because this was, I won't name them, but they were the type of client that absolutely never complained about the number of hours that this generated. Um,
Okay.
so actually, I think in most months they ended up doing more work than the the agreement would have been otherwise. And so, okay, I'm fine with this. Um, but I was fine with it because they were one of those, they only wanted or needed my help on something, right? And if you
Hmm.
have a lot of clients like this, it's extremely disruptive to the routine that the rest of your staff is going through. So I guess the question becomes, do you work with clients like this? Does it make sense, or is it too different than how the rest of your client base operates for it to make sense? Should I have even done that, in your opinion? So I thought it would make an interesting
Okay.
discussion or debate.
Sounds good. I like it. And definitely been in that position too, where it just didn't make any sense to me. But we had those clients that wanted everything hourly. So it goes clients using out of scope to turn us back into break fix, or clients building their own stacks via out of scope rates. We started taking on break fix clients about 4 years ago. It's been a worthwhile transition, or we stopped taking on, better said.
Yeah.
We've seen an annoying slow creep tendency of some of our clients, ones we had both before and after the managed services transition, towards doing whatever they want and just paying the out of scope rate for it.
Oh,
Client,
that's different.
yeah, that's
That
they're
I'd be
using
less
it as a
okay with.
tool. Yeah, that's interesting. Clients find a way, man. Clients find a great deal on 10 computers on Amazon, buy them, put the ticket for us to set them up. We tell them we should have talked to us before. They don't meet minimum spec. They're out of scope. Client shrugs and says, okay, bill me. I got a great deal on them. Um, this sucks because I've done this before in the sense of like I've talked about using consumer or prosumer SSD drives versus enterprise drives, being self insurance. This is ouch. This sucks. Client agrees to use a new SaaS app and their all-in-one business management app as their all-in-one business management app. It violates every security practice known to man, hard-coded passwords, no SSO.
Yeah.
We tell them we can't support it and ask if we can just bill out of scope when they need help. Oh, tell me the
Is
transition.
this all the same client? If so,
Oh,
this
I,
client's got to go.
this is a bad client. I kind of don't want it to be all the same client because the amount of shitstorm this is just get better and better. But that's totally trolling. Let me be clear. Client finds MFA annoying, so they can ask us to disable. Are willing to sign whatever waiver we offer them. Yeah, I know if it melts down, you can bill me out of scope for it. Okay, I don't want to keep reading. This is painful. Uh,
So it kind of depends. The home PC one I might let go depending on how many we're talking about. Like if it's two computers, the problem is that um, not only will the client forget that they agreed to pay support on it later on when something happens, you will go through an administrative hassle to even remember to do that. And so you got to be just okay taking the hit on that if you're going to accept it, because chances are you will never get paid for any work you do on it besides the initial install. And if it's one computer, maybe. If it's 10, probably not. I don't think I'd be okay with that.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, this is one of those things that like I'd sit down and I get it. We should have these on Wednesdays so we can say it's the fire your client, change your RMM Wednesdays. But my thing is, if you have a client that's that out of alignment with the way you MSP, that should be the conversation. You obviously have these needs. We don't want to be the ones to tell you you can't do what you need to do, but this is not how we conduct business. Let's have a conversation about transitioning.
Yeah.
Because don't get me wrong, I bet all the out of scope work billables are nice, but how much is it hurting your help desk? It's context switching, right? When you have a bunch of staff that haven't had to worry about upgrading home to pro ever, and they haven't had to worry around working around RAM constraints or software constraints or hardware constraints, and now they have to for this one client. Not to mention, there's no way in hell you're doing QBRs, and once a year you're talking about your hardware refreshes when you have no say in that, you have no agency on the hardware. It's not possible.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know. This is a client I would nope out of fairly quickly.
Yeah.
Uh,
If this is all one client, forget it.
yeah,
Terrible with it. As far as out of scope in general, I think it's very case by case. It depends on what it is and how far a deviation it is from your standard, and what the support burden is going to be for whatever they're asking you to do. Like for example, in most organizations, the no MFA has got to be a hard no at this point. But if you're talking about somebody who wants to use Dell and we're all on HP, that might be okay.
yeah, yeah. That's the thing. I mean, there's reasonable workarounds, and there's stuff that's just completely off the table. He does give the OP does give some excellent questions. What is your out of scope rate and minimum? I don't think that's honestly relevant to solving this problem. What are things that a client could do that would cause you to drop them rather than billing out of scope? I think that's a really good question. And Have you ever gotten to the point where a client where you realize you're not really doing managed service anymore because they're just doing whatever they want? I think he realizes
Yes.
this to me screams single client based on everything else they put. So I want to focus on this. What are some things a client would do that would cause you to drop them? Because that's the line you're talking about, right? Some out of scope things are okay. Some this is just not what we do. Um, I will say one of the posts, none of the posts blame the OP for this. And it's not about blaming OP, but you got to realize if they're willing to have this conversation, you might have done something to invite that as an option for them. Um, I would only look at it not in a beat yourself up thing, but in a let me be aware of this for the next client so that I don't put myself in this situation again. Even if it's a minimal amount of accountability, because this sounds like a bulldozer client, but still, it's something that, doesn't hurt to be a little introspective on. So, Matt, what are those things that you would just clients got to go? Like, where's that line for out of scope work?
So security things are a big one. Partial bias because I'm a security person, but
But we should
I
all,
am not a big believer in those will sign a waiver kind of things or any of that stuff. If you don't align on security priorities, they got to, and that's not to say clients need to ask for it, right? Remember that you are the professional as the MSP. It's not like you go to your plumber and say, I want copper pipe versus PVC or whatever. You don't know, or at least I don't. Um, so security is a big one. And for requests that they have out of scope, it's really a supportability question. If they want to use a different hardware brand or a different application or something, I am probably okay with that if after an examination it meets the requirements and I don't feel it's going to be a big support burden. That's really the question. Can I support this with existing processes without them being a big exception? And if they're an exception, then I might not do it anyway. Right? There comes a point where yes, you can pay me hourly for this, but if my support desk needs to go read a whole different procedure and hit a different line on the flow chart for this client, then it's not worth it. Um, so what happened with us is that our pro services department handled clients like that. So ones that were not doing normal things or out of support things, they left the managed services team for the most part and became hourly, like it was somebody who came off the street kind of support. And if they were okay with it, making that trade off, then we would continue working with them on the basis of you're not necessarily, the support desk SLA is gone, right? It's
yeah,
very different working that way. Um, so that's a long-winded way of saying it really depends on what they were changing and how much they're okay with the associated support changes that come with going out of scope or out of standard.
I would say I don't mind the LOB apps so much if they're willing to pay for a support contract with the vendor. Like if I know I have that extra resource that we can rely on the vendor and it's under management with the vendor, I'm more open to that. I'm okay with that. If we're buying aftermarket hardware or non new hardware, um, and we have warranties for them with same day or next business day replacement, I probably wouldn't fight that. And you can't really get that with a home PC anyway, at a Best Buy for sure. Um, if it's something like you said, if it's something that's going to detract from my support team or the rest of my team's ability to do their jobs in an effective way and may lead to uh, a less than ideal service delivery to the client, which we're ultimately responsible for, that's probably where I draw the line. That's where I'd be, I'm sorry, we just can't do this. An example would be, like you said, the security thing. No, we're
Yeah,
not going to use MFA. Then we're not, this is not the client. This is not you. I can't go to Costco and say, I want to start using my Amex again because you used to allow Amex. Like that doesn't work. You know what I
right.
mean?
Or if right, let's say you use Proofpoint, right, and you have one client that decides they want Mimecast.
Yeah.
I'm not getting into that because now my support desk has to learn a completely separate filtering system and how to troubleshoot it and all of that.
Exactly. Yeah, we've had those before. We had a major manufacturing client, a global one, and they paid for their own ESET. Um, and they had I want to say 30 offices, something like that we were managing across the globe. Um, and there was nothing wrong with ESET. They had the appropriate licenses. They had the appropriate management. The problem was we didn't have any automation built around it. We didn't have any of our tools, and we didn't charge for antivirus anyway. Like, it was a thing of like, his argument was we paid for it already and let us use it. My argument was, well, you don't have internal IT. It's us managing it. We're not charging you a penny extra for it. We're going to use the tools we knew. And that was one of those I was willing to draw a hard line on. I'm like, it doesn't affect you financially in the least bit. It doesn't affect your user. It's just, it's a quality of life thing.
That one came up all the time. Like, I don't know what it is about
takeovers. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And the conversation always went, not only are we not charging for it, you are paying for our antivirus anyway. Like,
they ever ask you if they can discount the MSA by a little bit?
Oh, yeah.
Like, no.
So,
not a chance.
So we're using this one that you're already paying for, and too bad on the 8 months that you have left on the old contract.
Yeah. Yeah, stuff like that, and I've told him, and like, I use also, like, our onboarding is where we raise the tide to everything. We'll take care of this during onboarding because we've already included in the scope of onboarding. If we have to do this as a project later, then it's going to be a financial impact, right? Like, let's do it for the thing you've already paid for and we already agreed to. So those are always fun. I'd love to hear from more MSPs on the MSP Media Network Discord. Matt, we're going to cut a little early because we have Bits and Books at 11 o'clock with Marnie Stockman going over the second half of Patrick Lencioni's Getting Naked, which is fun. But before we do that, Matt, what do you have coming up, dude? What do you got going on?
I should have prepared something.
I ask you every week, so
I know. I should have anticipated this.
Yeah, it's all
really
good,
not much going on this week. Nothing noteworthy. Continuing to get ready for Connect. That's kind of the main things going on there. There's a lot of planning around that, obviously.
Yeah, absolutely. We're excited for Connect too. We're actually, we have less than a month and change away. I decided last minute we're going to get a brand new booth just for Connect. Well, it's going to be for all next year too, but I'm trying to get it done before Connect. So
nice. Fun. I can't wait to see it.
Yeah. So let's see what else we got coming up. This is Community Live episode 12, Bits and Books, in 12 minutes on this same network. Just stay on youtube.com/MSP Media Network or follow us on LinkedIn or on Facebook. It's there. On Tuesday, wins and losses. Jason Slagle, myself. Let's see if I get into the 550s. And then we have AI Roundup, episode 29. AI Roundup is always good. Whether it's giant people or crazy stuff going on. And then we have MSP Dispatch, presented by Tony Francisco, myself, every Tuesday and Friday. Tuesdays at 10 and Friday just before MSP Community Live. So it's nice to have it. That's it. That's all she wrote for today's episode. 2 stories instead of 3, but I like that these were really involved stories that definitely were worth talking about. So I enjoyed it.
Went deeper. It was nice.
Yeah. And to the MSP audience, thanks for hanging out with us. Hope to see you on Bits and Books. Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other.
Thanks, guys.
This has been a broadcast